You are here with Service 95. My name is Basma Khalifa. I am a director and a writer, and I am here with Saja Kilani, who is Rana in The Voice of Hind Rajab.
So my name is Saja Kilani. I'm a Palestinian, Jordanian, Canadian actress and spoken word poet.
Can you tell me about the film, what it's about, the story of it, and also your role as Rana?
So The Voice of Hind Rajab is about a Palestinian child called Hind Rajab.
شو اسمك انتي؟ مهدي احتمال احتاج سيارة اسعاف.
عمر حبيبي احنا مجبورين نأمن له المسألة كامل.
إذا ما فيش معها وقت.
She was trapped in Gaza in a car in January 2024, and she was on the phone with the Red Crescent in Ramallah. And the film is shot entirely from the perspective of the Red Crescent when they were trying to save her.
And your role in the film?
I played Rena, who's a Red Crescent volunteer, and she was the person who was on the phone with Hind most of the phone call. Rena is actually head of communication at the Red Crescent. She's an incredible woman from Jerusalem, who's still active to this day.
Wow, in Jerusalem?
In Ramallah.
In Ramallah.
Yeah, at the Red Crescent. Yeah.
Wow. But what was really interesting is what happened in Venice. You were told, or the team was told, this film is too political and it should not be shown. It's shown. And then you get a 24-minute standing ovation, which even in Venice terms is extraordinary. And I think probably everyone's hands were really sore from all the clapping. It must have been crazy. What did that tell you about this film being too political?
You know, I think our choice of language is very important, because I think what people really mean when they say too political is they might be scared to say too truthful. And I think what happened in Venice, in that 24 minutes, I felt like the audience was saying humanity is not too political. Because this film tackles a human story, a child, a 6-year-old, who you don't need to be in any, side of politics. You just need to be human. And that's the collective respect that we all have. And I think this film was a constant reminder of the absence of our humanity. And in that room, I felt like it was being reignited. I felt like we were all together saying that phrase. Humanity is not too political. We all have humanity inside of us. We just need to awaken it.
Right.
And that's what I would like people to leave the film with hope that we can bring that humanity, hope that to make sure that a story like Hind never happens again.
Right.
Hope that we can bring peace to the world. Without hope, there's nothing, in my opinion. I think hope is the one thing that's unbeatable.
Right.
The one thing, and it's faith, it's belief in that. And it's not just saying it, oh yeah, I'm hopeful. No, it's believing that. And that's why I'm able to do what I'm doing. That even everyone in the film, everyone had hope. This film is such a heavy, tragic film, but it leaves you with that. I felt, before the film, I felt like this was such a disconnecting world. We're slowly diverting from, is that the right word? Yeah, from each other. And this film has been connecting all of us.
Right.
The voice of a child has literally been connecting. I'm here now sitting with you talking about it.
And it's kind of, how political can a child's voice be? Really? Had you heard the phone call and the voice of Hind Rajab before you had filmed it?
So when the news came out, it was just a few minutes that went out.
Right.
So everyone just heard a couple of, and it was actually a conversation between Hind and Rana. But the entire conversation for the film, we actually didn't hear it in rehearsals. It was the director's decision.
You didn't hear it in rehearsals?
No, it was her decision to only provide it on set, on action.
So how did you rehearse?
We rehearsed, we knew what she was saying, right? It was, the script was there. But we didn't hear her voice. We only heard our characters in rehearsals.
Wow.
And that was her brilliant idea. But it was handled with so much care and respect for that. But in my personally, I felt like that helped me so much because we shot chronologically. So every scene, the voice was hidden until it was that day to shoot it. And the reactions you saw were
because they're
pretty
not,
much
they're
real.
actually natural reactions.
Yeah. And it shows you that it's one thing when you know what she's going to say, but it's a whole other thing
Hearing
when
her
you
little
hear
voice.
it. Because then you hear and you're like, oh my God, she was that small. And you just try to visualize that. And I think the moment I heard her voice on set for the first time was kind of like a shock. And I completely broke down, but I thought, how am I going to be able to continue? But I literally let her voice guide me. And I felt like I was there trying to help her the whole time. But what helped on set is the love and respect that everyone had, including the director. You know, she gave us the space to, you know, anytime you wanted to tap out, anytime you wanted some break, there was that respect for everyone to be like, hey, it's okay. Yeah, it was kind of like a big hug.
Yeah, it's like a kind of like womb, kind of like we're in this together.
Yes.
And this is going to hurt but empower us all to do this together.
100%.
Is there any point when you were filming or when you were shooting that it was really hard and that you struggled to continue? Or do you feel like you were just kept being more and more impassioned to do what you were doing?
You know, anytime that there was a moment where you would say, okay, what am I doing? This child was already failed. Then you realize you're living in present time with what's currently going on, and we're just telling the story. They're living it, and that is the least you can do as an artist, as a filmmaker. It felt like a responsibility and a duty at the same time.
When I watched it, I always said to myself, it's funny, I was thinking a lot about stories from Palestine and stories from Sudan because they're both happening at the same time. And I found myself in a place where I was struggling to watch content that is so hard to watch, just from a mental health point of view. But I knew this was one of those films. I was like, I need to be mentally okay to watch this, but I need to watch this. And when I watched it, I sort of felt this sort of the importance of a story that we are telling, but it felt so weird to watch a story as the time is still existing. We're so used to watching more stories of like, oh, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, whatever. And I was like, I'm watching a fictional story that's factual in the current climate that it's happening in. So it's not a past tense, it's a current present tense. And to turn factual into fictional felt so strange to see in real time. And in myself, I was like, it's kind of like a new genre of film. To suddenly be like, oh, we're going to record things as they're happening, but not as a documentary. Why do you think the Voice of Hind Rajab needed to happen in the way it happened? Why did it need to become a fictional story for it to have the impact that it has?
Instead of a documentary?
Yeah, instead of a documentary.
It's a good question. First, on your first note, when you create art that's close in proximity to what is currently happening, it makes it that much more important to tell that story. Because every time that you feel like it is getting too heavy or it is getting too hard, you remind yourself, we're just telling this story.
Right.
We're just the vessel here. There's people that are still currently going through this, and it just, it adds more value to the work, I guess. But, well, with the Voice of Hind Rajab, really, it was the director's choice to make this film entirely from the perspective of the Red Crescent and to tell their story, because it had already happened. With documentaries, you can't go back and like film what had happened. This story was already out, so it was just kind of bringing it back to that moment from their perspective,
Right.
and sharing that narrative that probably would have gone unnoticed.
Right.
So it's really as anchored in truth as one can do. And I appreciate that decision of Gauthis to completely shoot it from their perspective, because it's their honest narrative from their side, following a recording. It puts you in the room with them, and it doesn't take you out.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you feel like film needs to be told from two sides? Or do you think it's okay to tell film from one side. I guess it's the conversation of, is cinema fair? You know, and what is fair, especially, again, this is a factual story. So I guess people could watch it and be like, it's not fair that you only hear one side. This is facts, and facts exist, and maybe they have a fact of the reason why, whatever. For you, what is fair in cinema?
You know, really, it depends on the story. It depends on the story and the intention and the perspectives, because there can be an argument for both, right? I think you can never please everyone. You can never create something that's okay. Wow, everyone agrees on this, you know?
Great.
Yeah. So it's a tricky one, and as long as you're honest with your intention, I hope it's received as such.
Did you ever have any fear making this film, in the sense of like not doing Rana justice, Hind justice, even also being a, you know, this your first big film, international film, I guess. How did you manage that fear, or was there a fear of sort of making sure that you have this huge responsibility and you want to, you know, obviously do the best that you can?
I think the simple answer is absolutely. There was fear constantly. And I think that to me is proof of why I need to be doing what I'm doing. I think fear can be healthy, because I did want to give her justice. I wanted to make sure that when she sees it, she feels honored, she feels seen, she feels heard. And that to me gave me a lot of fear throughout. I'm like, I want to be able to do that. Am I going to be able to do that? But I didn't allow that fear to take over and make me doubt the work. And I allowed it to kind of drive me, to challenge, to be like, okay, you were chosen for a reason, honor it, give it as much as you can. And I really did. Like, I wanted to honor her. I wanted to give her the justice she deserved. And she was so generous with her time and with her, she shared her perspective. And, you know, it was like she was opening a wound for me, when she wanted to make sure that I had all the information that I needed to have. And I don't personally like to practice method acting. I tap in, tap out. But with this film, I think subconsciously I was practicing it, because Rana, my character, deteriorates throughout the film. And I think that was affecting my physical being until I got actually sick the last 2 days. I had a fever and I wasn't quite sure why. I thought it was a flu, but I didn't have any other flu symptoms. And the minute we wrapped, I was a completely different person.
As in, you kind of removed it?
Completely.
Wow.
It stayed with me to this day. It's with me.
Yeah, of course.
But the sickness, gone.
Wow.
I don't know how to explain it.
Wow.
I think I entered her subconsciously. And you know why? I'll tell you something.
Yeah.
When I first heard Hind Rajab, when the news came out in January, I remember telling myself, oh, I wish I was there with the child, and I wish I just hugged her. I wish she didn't die alone. And I think my subconscious kept that wish. And until I came on set, I felt like I was hugging her.
Right.
And you were asking if there was a moment before. And I'll tell you, there was one specific moment when I'm reading the verse of the Quran with her.
نقرأ أنا وياكي آية قرآن.
تمام.
نقرأ قرآن وأدعي شوي، شو رأيك؟ طيب. نحكي بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الرحمن الرحيم. مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم. غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. آمين. صدق الله العظيم.
Really, in that moment, I completely zoned out of the set. I remember I looked at something specific and it was this black dot on a wall. And I felt like I was there with her. I felt like I was reading it with her in real time. And I felt like my subconscious was answering my request to hug her. And I hugged her in that scene. And then I heard the word cut. And I was like,
You need to stop on it. That's the
and we actually, that was the scene we've done very minimal takes for. Maybe we did 2. And that was it. Because it was just, I really felt like that scene to me was so special because in a way I felt like I was with her and I felt like maybe Rana had felt that too. And Rana told me actually in that when she was reading the Quran with her was actually the only time she stopped hearing the bombs in the phone call. She's like, it was so silent. I didn't hear sirens. I didn't hear anything. In that specific moment with her. She's like, it was so peaceful.
Yeah.
And that's actually what I felt on set.
Right.
It felt so calming, kind of like how it is right now. It felt so
It's
calming.
so calming.
Yeah.
I think that's the power of prayer,
Also that.
right? That's the power of when, I guess us as Muslims, when you make that decision to prostrate and you're in that power and you're in that place, everything sort of melts away. Just even for that minute and a half that's happening. It's so short. But in that moment, you're like, nothing else exists in this. I honestly feel like it's even ridiculous for me to say acting. Because I don't really feel like it's acting. I feel like you were, whether Hena's with us or not, you were performing that prayer to her.
Yeah.
And that prayer exists whether you're alive or not alive. I'm getting emotional even thinking about it.
No,
Because it's just
really,
like,
you're right.
you were giving her that prayer.
Yeah.
And so, sorry, I'm getting so emotional thinking about it. And so I think that that's when, whether it's acting or not, it doesn't actually matter.
You know, none of this exterior thing matters. You don't have to be Palestinian. You don't have to be Arab. You don't have to be Muslim, Christian, Jewish. You don't have to be anything. You just have to be human. Like, inevitably, if you're listening to a 6-year-old child begging
Right, to be saved.
to be saved,
Right.
you're going to want to answer that call.
Yeah. And you're going to want to try to save them.
Exactly.
And then even in that, again, with that sort of doing that prayer and being in that motion of prayer, that was what Rana was like, this is actually the only thing I can do for you.
Yeah.
And this is the only thing and the only power I can give you for whatever happens next or whatever happens to Hind. It's almost like her savior and not her savior. And I think you being able to sort of recite that and do that so beautifully and calmly and sort of, it's really interesting with Rana and then with yourself, it was an instinct of being like, what gift can I give?
Right.
Because I can't give her anything else right now. I am completely powerless.
And the difference between Rana and I is Rana didn't know she was going to die. Versus I know what happened to her. So when I was reading the Quran with her, I know that Rana maybe in the back of her head said, this is what I want you to be doing now in case. But for me, it's like, this is what I want you to do now because I know.
Because I knew.
So there was that. But then in that moment, for some reason, I believed I could save her. Power of cinema too.
Power of
You
cinema.
want to, and a lot of people came after watching the film said, you know, I had hope even though I knew what was going to happen.
I had hope. I was like, oh, maybe maybe. But also for someone, and again, religiously of whatever religion, to give someone a prayer before they pass, no matter what age, ethnicity, religion, whatever it is almost the ultimate blessing you can give them. So whether you're praying for her in passing, still by performing the prayer while you're acting, whether we can call this acting at this point or not, it's still a present that you give to Hind.
Exactly.
Sometimes I worry with the cinema that we make and the stories we're choosing to tell in this current climate, in this current world, is that we're making films by our people for our people. And I worry that then the message isn't getting out further than the people who already know the story. And that's something I've really struggled and pulled with in terms of like giving it to my people, but then also making sure that this needs to exist past me for it to have impact.
Exactly, because we know the story.
We know the story. We know how it feels.
We know how it feels. We obviously are very emotionally connected to it.
Right.
But it's important for those that do not know the story
Right.
to see it. Because then it shows you how we're all related too. You know? That media stereotype about how different we are, that's that's not real.
Ultimately, we all know a 6-year-old child who deserves to be saved.
You either have a 6-year-old, you've been a 6-year-old, you know a 6-year-old.
Yeah. It's something I've just always sort of been like, I mean, even when I watched it, I thought, I mean, of course, millions of people at this point have seen it, thousands of people, but I hope that people who would be like, oh, this has got nothing to do with me. And I think that can be the power in cinema, where you say, it might have nothing to do with me, but it doesn't mean I shouldn't educate myself in it. Because actually it does have something to do with you. Because if you're human and you live in this world and you contribute to this world, or you want to, you should. That's why stories like this matter. So that we can actually live by not again, and this shouldn't be happening, and how do we stop this happening again?
Yeah.
Which I do think is the impact of that. What is this experience of playing Rana, of The Voice of Hind Rajab, but also you as an actress, your first huge movie? What has this experience taught you about the woman that you are, and how you've probably grown in this last year of this whole great adventure that you've been on, but also as an artist? I'd love to know.
It's taught me to be more courageous. And anytime that you would have like imposter syndrome, it was kind of like, no, you know, you're meant to be where you are. Trust your path, trust your gut. Don't self-sabotage. Rena has taught me a lot of strength. Rena specifically, both the Renas in my life, my mom and Rena al-Faqih, both taught me to approach things with confidence, but at the same time with humility. The film I'm so humbled by, really. I'm so grateful to be part of. I'm so grateful for the director for giving me a chance. Kauthar, I love you. And really, like,
It's a journey.
it is. And I'm trusting it. I'm trusting that everything is, I really believe, as cliche as it sounds, but I really believe that everything happens for a reason.
Yeah, of course.
And everything is meant to be the way it is, and to kind of trust God's plan. And yeah.
What do you want people to take away from this story and the voice of Hind Rajab, but also of Rana and of the other actors and the other story? If, let's say, 5, 6, 10, 20 years' time, what's the underlining message that you want people to sort of like live with, and for this film to live?
I would love for Rana and who the film represents, I would love for them to be seen, to feel heard, but also embraced. And I hope that they believe that this served them justice and gave them what they really deserve. For people, I just really hope that when they see the film, they first watch it with an open heart and an open mind, and understand that it's this collective respect. And I say this constantly, but this was what I've been noticing, what I hope can keep evolving and expanding, is our need for humanity right now more than ever.
Right.
And I hope that this film leaves you with that belief as well.
Like a collective responsibility.
Exactly.
What did Rana say when she watched the film?
I was so nervous for her to see the film.
Why?
Because of that fear that you have of,
Responsibility.
Exactly. And she said a phrase in Arabic that, it's not going to sound as poetic translated, but I'm going to say it in Arabic. She said, "Kunti safira lamashari," which means you're an ambassador for my feelings.
Yeah.
And that to me felt, after you've put in the work and you want to make sure that when she sees it, she sees herself, but also she sees it respected and loved, and she did. And it meant everything.
An ambassador for my feelings is, you couldn't get a greater compliment. That is literally, if you're ever going to play a role, that you're embodying someone's life, and they are also alive to be able to tell you how it feels to watch themselves. It must be such a trippy thing for her to watch herself played on screen again. And for that to be the response just means that you did the perfect job, which is just, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
I'm so happy for you, and I'm
Thank you.
so proud of you.
Oh, thank you so much.
And if I honestly finished the film and I thought to myself, if this is the first big performance, your life and career is like, I just need you to keep doing it.
Oh, thank you.
Because I'm so excited for what you're going to do next. This is just the beginning, and what a beginning. And what a responsibility this beginning is, but also what a justice you did to your own beginning. And I think if we take away, we never will, but the responsibility of the people you're serving, and of Hind, and of Rana, and of everyone else, and of Kauthar, everyone, you have a responsibility to yourself to also be the best you can be, and to be the best actor, and to be the best filmmaker, and to be the best poet. And I honestly feel like you're doing justice.
You're like speaking to...
No, you're going to make me cry.
I'm so proud of you.
Thank you so much. I really feel
It's just...
Thank you.
We need
Can I
more of
just
you.
say you've been so comforting, and I really I felt like you were really listening. Well, you were, but like,
Yeah, I'm so interested.
but a lot of the times, you know, it's always like, okay, what's the next question? Was it? But this felt so organic, and you're so easy to talk to. So thank you so much.
Thank you for doing
Thank
this.
you.
Thank you so much.